Alright everyone, we're gonna start now, so you need to stop talking. You can keep drinking, but you need to stop talking. Alright, so this is the Bitcoinology meetup. In case you don't know how you got here, you can find us on Twitter, follow us there, on Mastodon, follow us there also, and on meetup.com. And today we have a very special guest. We actually do, I never said this before, you can ask them. Right, this is the first time. And the subject today is really interesting and something that a lot of people know about. So I give you Christian.
Hey, okay, thank you. Thanks for having us. Before I start, it's probably a good idea to make sure you have a Lightning wallet downloaded, because at the end, I have some games we can play and actually get some Bitcoin through the games. So if you haven't got a Lightning wallet installed, please do so. I recommend my company's wallet, ZEBEDEE. So if you just type in ZEBEDEE on my t-shirt into the Google Play or App Store, you should be able to download it. But today I'm going to talk about the history of Bitcoin in gaming and how to make this go full screen. Or is it all right just like that?
What do you need to...
full screen. Yep.
I think it's F11.
There we go.
There
Great.
you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, cool. So I've been told that people here are kind of somewhat Bitcoin familiar. Is anybody here who's completely new to Bitcoin? Don't be shy, but everybody kind of knows what it is, so I don't have to explain the basics. Yeah. So I thought I'd just give an interesting presentation on the history of Bitcoin in gaming, or the history of gaming with Bitcoin. Because at the moment, actually, blockchain in gaming is actually quite a buzzword. I went to a gaming conference just last week, and there's like a blockchain track, but there's really no mention of Bitcoin. But it actually all kind of started on Bitcoin with gaming, and I was there in 2013. I started to make Bitcoin games. But I just want to give the context. I think it's interesting so people kind of know how it started, what kind of went wrong, and what's getting better now with ZEBEDEE and Lightning. So before I start, I just want to go back way before even Bitcoin. And games had money. Does anybody know what these cards are? Has anybody seen them before? No? Never seen them before?
Are these tarot cards?
No. These are called hanafuda, which is Japanese for flower cards. And originally in Japan, the first kind of Western people to come to Japan were, I think, the Portuguese. And they basically brought kind of card games to Japan. And people would basically play games for money. Games had money. Obviously kids would play games without money, but most people, they would make a game more interesting, with some money. That's just what made sense. However, eventually I think the shogun, they actually banned it, because obviously, putting games in money a bit too much, you had these issues with gambling, stuff like this, and the Japanese shogun didn't like it, so they actually banned it. And a company, a very old company, made these cards, and the point of these cards were that they didn't look like normal playing cards. They were kind of a secret way to play games with money, because people just look them out and say, oh, they're just just flower cards, they're just interesting images. And so that's kind of an interesting little bit of a tidbit, because this actually has relevance to one of the biggest gaming companies nowadays, which is this game. Everybody knows this game?
Yes.
So this game is made by what company? Nintendo. So Nintendo made Super Mario, but when Nintendo started, the first game they made were flower cards. So Nintendo was originally kind of a company to make these cards so people could play games for money, without kind of being, I suppose, beheaded or whatever.
Games.
Yes, yeah. Well, kind of, yeah. It's the game itself is kind of boring. I played it with my wife a few times, so money definitely makes it more interesting. But the point is that games had money, and then we kind of had digital games came, right? So we kind of had money in games, but we didn't. So obviously Nintendo, they wanted to continue the concept of, well, you have a game and you get coins. But obviously when they released Super Mario, you couldn't actually get money. Like, how can you have money in a game? But yet they could still just get like fake coins. But this connection between money and games just, seemed obvious. And then we also had, Space Invaders, or insert 25 cents to play. So you could put money in a game, but the money wasn't in the game. So, when games became digital, the link between games and money kind of broke, just because from a technological reason, right? We had cash, and then we had digital things, but we didn't have digital money yet. Skip forward like a few decades, and we kind of had money in games. So, some companies cropped up like PayPal or in-app purchase and Apple. So we can kind of put money in games, but it wasn't really it wasn't really done well. You know, it wasn't like if we play cards or we play poker, we can just like throw some coins to each other, we can pass it around. They couldn't really do that. Instead, you would have like, you know, buy some in-game coins for $2.99, $4.99, and you couldn't do a tiny amount. You could only do, you know, whatever a credit card would allow you to do. If you wanted to get money out of the game, you know, there are companies where you would have to basically, you know, you'd play a game, you earn some money, and then you'd have to go through PayPal, but you'd have to like wait until, you know, you earned a certain amount, and it would take ages to go through, and you need a bank account. It wasn't allowed in some countries, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also had like downloadable content. So yeah, this is kind of how money in games kind of became. And, you know, I put it to you that this is kind of not how money in games should work. You know, money in games should work how money works in, you know, how cash works, you know. Be peer-to-peer and easily tradable. Yeah, so money wasn't programmable, you know. Maybe they would have liked to do that, but the technology wasn't there, you know. And yeah, so this is from, is it Zoolander? You know, where it's like a famous scene where they're told the files are in the computer. So they're looking inside the computer. So this is kind of, you know, the money's in the computer, but it's not really there. It's not really programmable. But then along comes Bitcoin. And I just say Bitcoin there because I had a friend who keeps calling it Bitcoin. So I'm sure we've all got a friend like that. Yeah, and for the first time, you know, money became programmable in games. So this is, you know, was the first kind of Bitcoin client was like, was it 2010 or the client came out where you can actually start to use it in applications. So, you know.
Why did you put the RBTC?
Oh, I didn't. Oh, Bitcoin, sorry. Should I? This is what happens when you make presentation on the train. I had to Google as the Wi-Fi was going in and out. Magic internet money. This is the one that loaded. Anyway, so yeah, we finally had programmable money, and we kind of had the initial Bitcoin games that came out. So I'm not sure, people might remember this one. I think Adam might know this one. This was Satoshi's Dice. This was a very simple kind of dice game where you would send Bitcoin to an address to place a bet, and then it would kind of roll a dice, and if you won, you get Bitcoin sent back. So this was kind of the first proto game. It also kind of had a game. This was a Bitcoin faucet. I kind of see this as a little bit of a game. It's just a way to kind of programmably, you know, in an application, use Bitcoin as money. So this was, I think, yeah, this was this Gavin Andreessen's? I can't remember, but you get 5 Bitcoins per visitor. I think it used to be more than that at some point, but yeah, you know. So this is kind of, you know, what, not really games, I suppose, but people were starting to kind of figure out, hey, we have programmable money now, so we can actually bring it into the digital world. Any others? I just wondered if anybody knows of any other original Bitcoin games.
Yeah, I think there was a poker game in the initial Bitcoin implementation.
The initial clean.
Okay, yeah, you might be right, actually, yeah.
It wasn't completed, but he did actually.
Yeah, there is some HTML, like, it looks like something made by an intern.
Yeah.
But there is a game.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, obviously, you know, I think there were probably people who made some poker games and stuff like this, you know. But this is, like, probably the first ones that were kind of, I guess, well played. And then we had some other Bitcoin games, so I'm going to plug myself. A lot of these games are my games, because I'm somewhat known for, I started to make Bitcoin games in 2013. And one of the first people to make games on mobile, and actual games that you could download and play. So here are a few. We had like Sarutobi TAKARA, I'll get into a bit. There was another game I made. There was also a Minecraft server called BitQuest. So this is like 2013, 14, 15. People started to actually make real games, you know. There were a lot of restrictions at the time, especially gaming was really on mobile then, you know, and also on certain like Steam and stuff like that. So it wasn't really allowed, but, you know, we kind of got ways to do it. And I think that's why Minecraft was somewhat open so people could do it. So we started to have games that were coming out. I'll talk about the game that kind of started my whole career, really. This was a game I made in 2013. I just heard about Bitcoin, went down the rabbit hole, and at the time I was like just making an indie game. And I thought, okay, I've got Bitcoin, it'll be great. In my game I can let people buy things for Bitcoin, you know, so they can buy power-ups for Bitcoin. I submitted it to Apple and they basically said, no, you have to use in-app purchases. You can't just, you know, use Bitcoin. So they had that clear rule. But I just like, you know, I think I was listening to an Andreas podcast, and he was like saying, do your hobby with Bitcoin, how you can contribute to Bitcoin. So I just really wanted to shoehorn Bitcoin into this game. So I did something stupid, which was instead of the game getting Bitcoin from the player, the game would give the Bitcoin player. I had no idea how I would fund it. So I just made the mechanism that if you download this game, the game would give you Bitcoin. And I went on Reddit, I posted a QR code and said, send Bitcoin to this address, and all the Bitcoin you send to this address will kind of be sent to players. And at the time, this was actually kind of blew up because at the time, people were trying to get everybody to know about Bitcoin, but there were no applications. So finally, people could say to their friends and family, download this game, you can just get Bitcoin, it's easy, and it really showcased how to use it. So people actually sent a lot of Bitcoin to that address. And a shrewd me would have run away with the money a long time ago. But I didn't. I stuck with it. So here are some images you would kind of play. And the first version, it would just randomly, it was very crude, it would randomly just throw 100 bits at you. This is when bits were like the cool term to use before we say sats. And here's a screen of how it kind of worked. There was a pot. I did a partnership with Zappo. I'm not sure they're around anymore. But they were like an early exchange, and they had a cool way, like you could enter your Bitcoin address if you wanted to, but if you didn't have a Bitcoin wallet, a user could download the game, enter their email address, and whenever they got Bitcoin, they get an email from Zappo saying, sign up to get your Bitcoin. So it's kind of an easy way to onboard it. A funny story about this, around the time it was a hack by Bitstamp, an exchange got hacked. And the hacker actually sent some of the Bitcoin he hacked to the game to be distributed to players. So there's a CoinDesk article about how the game was Robin Hood kind of money laundering, But I kind of got in touch with them, and I offered to give. It wasn't that much, like a few $1,000s, but I wanted to kind of say, hey, I'll give you the money back. But Bitstamp were like, oh no, it's cool, don't worry about it, But I thought it was a nice little story, of how I was a money launderer for a short time of a few $1,000s. So luckily, maybe the hacker knew not to put too much so I wouldn't get in trouble. So this was like a popular game at the time. I then went on to make this game. The reason I talk about my games is there weren't actually that many games around at the time. I was quite lucky. I often say if you can't be talented, be early. So I was early. So I made a bunch of semi-okay games and kind of got a lot of market share. But this was a game I made called TAKARA. TAKARA is Japanese for treasure. I was in Japan at the time. I was at a Bitcoin meetup at the Austrian embassy. And do you know when you get a little bit drunk and you think you see coins on the floor, but they're actually bottle caps? I got like that. And I thought, okay, well, it's a bottle cap, but wouldn't it be cool if I could just drop Bitcoin on the floor for people to pick up? So I actually, I came up with this idea. Okay, I'll make a geocaching app. I think it's like 2015 maybe, where people can drop Bitcoin anywhere around the world. And that's what people did. So we can see this is images of Tokyo, amounts of Bitcoin people dropped. So I think we can probably see here how much they dropped. Yes, like 2,000 bits. Yeah, so people were dropping Bitcoin all around the world, and people would collect it. Quite a few businesses picked this up. They realized we can drop Bitcoin in our restaurant or our cafe. And this was kind of secured because if anybody knows anything about geocaching games, it's quite easy to fake your location. So this was actually secured. When you drop Bitcoin, you would have to put a location-based question. So if I drop Bitcoin here, it would be what's the Wi-Fi password of this place? So someone would have to come here and type in the Wi-Fi password. So restaurants were kind of doing this. They would drop kind of Bitcoin, and then they'd say ask the staff for the code. But people would go there, and get the code. So it was really, really quite fun. And also have some people might notice there's things other than Bitcoin there, which I'll get into a little bit. But that was another game I did. And then the next thing in kind of Bitcoin gaming. So we kind of had these mobile games that came out. We had Minecraft server, and it was starting to take off. There were quite a few companies that were starting to kind of be funded and actually build their games on Bitcoin. And also, this was quite interesting, game tokens on Bitcoin. So I put the word NFTs. They weren't called NFTs at the time, but everybody knows what an NFT is nowadays, right? So NFTs is a recent term, I think, coined by CryptoKitties. But before, the precursor to NFTs, people were actually minting or issuing tokens as game items and as collectibles on Bitcoin using a protocol called Counterparty. Has anybody heard of Counterparty? Or? Yeah. So Rare Peppy. So Counterparty originally was, I think the original founders, they wanted to do, I guess, DeFi on Bitcoin. So it was really marketed more at like issuing company stocks and all this kind of shares. But the community said we're not interested in that. We're interested in doing Rare Peppys on it. But yeah, for the time, but we actually started to play around with issuing game items. So this is a game, Spells of Genesis. And it's kind of like the first game ever to really use NFTs. And it's like a Hearthstone style game. So you'd have these cards, but the cards were provably rare because they were on the blockchain. And then in my game, I let people bring the cards in. So this was the idea of you would have a game item from one game, but because it's on the blockchain, you could use it in another game, you know. So kind of this cross-game game item now is kind of known as the metaverse. Yeah, and this is kind of where gaming on Bitcoin started to take off. I think there was an episode of Shark Tank America where a company got funded by Vinny Lingham to make a counterparty game called Augmented. So yeah, it was really starting to take off, and you know, this was like, yeah, this is the future.
Just ask about this game and like these cards. Because I don't know anything about Hearthstone. I know it's based on cards. But like mechanically, how are the cards used in this Spells of Genesis game? Is it all within an application itself, or the game itself?
Yeah. So interestingly, what Spells of Genesis did, what the company did, they actually made the game first. So they made the cards first, so the game was still being developed. So originally, the first use case of the tokens were in my game. So actually, because I kind of saw they have a bunch of users who have bought these tokens and they wanted to use it, so I just quickly put them into my game. But in their game, how it would work is you would basically have a wallet, a counterparty wallet, which is basically like a Bitcoin wallet. It even has the same address format. It would hold your Bitcoin, it would also hold your tokens. And then you would link the wallet to the game. You would do something called message signing, where you would basically sign a message to prove you had an address. So the game would have an address, you prove you own the address, and then the game could see what tokens were on that address. So if you had Satoshi card, it would grant you access to Satoshi card in that game, you know, and if you didn't, obviously you couldn't do it. So that's kind of how it works. So in a way, it was kind of nice because you didn't actually have to send the token to the game. You know, you keep it in your wallet, you know, so it was kind of scalable in that way, but it had issues, which I'll get into. So, yeah.
Can you put that back in? Because I've been trying to use my Sarutobi card. Sarutobi.
Yeah, well, I'll probably get into like what happened, like why it kind of stopped. So yeah, I did have this at one point, and yeah, I plan to bring it back soon. We have something cool we're working on at ZEBEDEE, which I can't talk about because it's all hush-hush secret. But yeah, we do have there's a lot of things wrong with NFTs, and there's a lot of ways you should and shouldn't do it. But at ZEBEDEE, maybe I'll come back once that's public and give a talk on that. But yeah, at some point it will come back. But this is like really early stuff. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, I don't know if it's true, but I heard Blockbuster tried to make Netflix like in 1999 or something, or very early on. It was like, just didn't work. The tech wasn't there and there's so many things wrong. But now Netflix really works, right? And Blockbuster's gone. So I kind of see this stuff, you know, it's like so early. It was kind of cool, but it wasn't really the best way to do it. The tech wasn't there. It was a bit early. But yeah, hold on to that Sarutobi card, I suppose. Maybe it'll be useful. Yeah, anyway, so not so fast. So everything was great. We had Bitcoin games. People were tipping and dropping Bitcoin everywhere. People were playing Minecraft. We had tokens, game items, and what could go wrong, right? You know, everything's great. Yeah, and this happened. Fees, scaling. So probably a lot of people have probably got into Bitcoin after the scaling debate. But Bitcoin had a civil war where people were building applications on Bitcoin, but it didn't really scale. I don't want to get into the whole scaling debate, but loosely, to keep a blockchain decentralized, you have to have a limit on the amount of traffic you can do. The whole thing about Bitcoin is it should be reasonable for people to run their own node and reasonable for miners to kind of mine. But if there's too much traffic on the Bitcoin blockchain, it centralizes that because it becomes too expensive to do so. Anyway, there was a big debate, and we had this term small blockers and big blockers. And I've got a few images here. So this is when I guess I started to make my game, and fees were zero pretty much. And then once my game started to become popular, in order to send somebody a 10-cent tip, I had to pay $5 or £5, right? So my game mechanics broke. And people who were trading the counterparty assets, people would trade them on a DEX, where you could basically, sell it, and it was really good. But then, once it became like a few to kind of post a bid on the DEX. It kind of killed it because you would try to sell a rare Pepe that was worth $5 and it would cost $1 to list it, and then it might not get picked up. So it kind of died in a way. I'm going to mention this guy.
You can use the remote to show.
Oh yes, I can.
There you go.
This guy. So who's this guy? Luke Dash Jr. So he was actually against people who were using the Bitcoin blockchain for, I guess, what is kind of known as spam. So kind of doing these small transactions which weren't really Bitcoin. So Luke is kind of a small blocker. I think he wants like 300 kilobyte blocks at the time. So, but people like me were filling the blocks with basically data just for my game, you know. But I also found it a bit hypocritical because, actually no, sorry, I got this wrong. He wasn't putting it in the block, but he was putting Catholic verses in in the Bitcoin. So maybe he was kind of filling it up himself. That's true. But it's kind of like, yeah. And this is kind of like the op return war. So op return is a way you can add metadata to a Bitcoin transaction. Probably not what, yeah. Not sure if that was the original use case, but it basically lets you build these protocols like Counterparty to issue NFTs. It's called op return. And I think the Bitcoin devs made it smaller, the amount of data you could put in. But ultimately it was like, you know, this is kind of an attack on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, the base layer shouldn't be for applications. It should be for Bitcoin. And then we can use layer 2s that didn't exist at the time to kind of build your applications. So I actually started as a big blocker. So once my game started to suffer, I was like, we need to make the blocks bigger. And I was a big fan of Bitcoin Classic, I think, you know. So, but then I had a moment when I realized if my game, it was popular in the Bitcoin world, but it wasn't popular compared to a real game. I was like, if my game can like fill up some of the blocks, like it's just stupid. Like imagine if at the time, I think like Flappy Bird was popular, or like something that had millions of transactions. Imagine if that it just wouldn't work. So I quickly actually became, I guess, a small blocker or a pro layer 2 person. Yeah, but this is basically kind of killed all my games. I didn't mind so much because I kind of built all the games myself. I didn't have any staff to pay, so I just kind of said, oh well, you know, is what it is. It was a fun ride. But I did, you know, have colleagues who kind of had started a company and were like paying staff who were quite upset by it. Yeah, and solution. Luckily, my contemporaries at the time they actually saw a solution, which is this guy. Yes, well, maybe not, but yeah, but this is what happened. So I was making games on Bitcoin. A bunch of other people were making games with other companies, and then Bitcoin fees too expensive. Run away. This new chain has 0 fees, and I remember this being discussed. Like I can't remember who it was, but some famous Bitcoin person he actually had like played golf with Vitalik or something, and like, oh, we're moving to Ethereum. Like the fees are low, and the fees will always be low.
Plays golf?
Oh no, it may have been with somebody from Consensus, but yeah. But yeah, all these conversations were happening. They were basically saying, you know, it has 0 fees, and Bitcoin has like a few dollars. But if anybody knows now, that's not the case. And I think they tried to justify it that the culture in Ethereum was such that if the blocks ever got big, they would make the blocks bigger, which is, it's not that simple the way Ethereum works because they actually have a scaling bottleneck before the block size. But also that because the blocks happen like every 10 seconds, it would just be great. So yeah, everybody but me, I think, ran away to Ethereum. And but yeah, I kind of said at the time, they were kicking the can down the road, right? You haven't solved anything. You've just, like this restaurant's too busy, so let's go to a less popular restaurant. It's kind of what they did, you know. Yeah, so this was me on lonely Bitcoin Island, and everybody was in Ethereum City. So we started to see CryptoKitties, which broke Ethereum. It's kind of the one game, and we had some other ones, and Axie Infinity, which I think was originally on Ethereum, but now they've kind of made their own chain. And it's a bit of a castle made of sand, I thought. I was there, just like, all by my lonesome. And I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here. I said that people went over to Ethereum because the fees were lower. It's probably not entirely true. I think there were other 2 reasons. One is there was kind of, if you wanted to make applications on Bitcoin, the community wasn't really behind you because they didn't want people making random applications on layer one. So there's a lot of kind of, if you went on Reddit and say, hey, I'm making this on Bitcoin, you kind of get attacked. So I guess there was more of a nicer culture on Ethereum where you can do whatever you want and there'd be no consequences. Another reason people liked Ethereum is perhaps a smart contracting language. You could actually do more. So Bitcoin NFTs were limited. You know, you couldn't just write random smart contracts. But I think on Ethereum, people, you know, could write a smart contract to do an ICO and make lots of money. So that was also appealing as well. But I think the catalyst for it was probably the fees, because people were actually building stuff on Bitcoin, you know, to try to do these type of things. Counterparty was actually making an EVM as well to do smart contracts, but just the fees meant there's no point doing it. So yeah, but just play a little bit of devil's advocate. It wasn't entirely the fees.
Fees or more the inbuilt tokenization? You mentioned ICO as well. I feel like maybe it was more.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I know people who went to Ethereum and it was the fees that was the catalyst, but definitely one thing that meant tokens, the ERC20 took off on Ethereum was because on Counterparty, it was very, very hard to sell your token. There was no way to kind of do it, right? If you issued a token, how do you sell that? You basically, you know, like with ERC20, you send money to an address and the smart contract sends you the token. It kind of runs itself, as it were, like the Ethereum blockchain is your server for you. With Counterparty, you could list it on a DEX and people could buy it. There was a company called Tokenly which made a swap bot, which was a centralized server where they would basically, you'd send them your tokens and people would send them Bitcoin and then they would distribute it for you. But it wasn't as easy as just like deploying a smart contract. We're going to make this thing, we promise. Send all your money here and we'll give you this token. And yeah, so I think that's another reason why it took off as well. That's why I'm being a good researcher here and playing devil's advocate. Yeah, but I wasn't alone on the island. I saw in the far distance a ship coming. Very far away with lightning on it. Yeah, so I kind of, around this time, Bitcoin on gaming and Bitcoin kind of died. But I kind of thought on Ethereum, it's like, does not really scalable either. So what's the solution here? I did actually a lot of work on like research on some sidechain stuff in the early days and trying to see what's the best way to do that. I even made Ethereum dApps just to try Ethereum out. I didn't want to criticize it before I tried it out. So I tried it out and made some dApps, and I did the original Web3. I made a Web3 wallet when Web3 actually meant something, it had a specific protocol. Now it's more of a nebulous term. And yeah, I won't get into it, but I kind of saw some of the bottlenecks in Ethereum, which kind of made me a little bit skeptical of it at the time. But yeah, so then I heard about Lightning Network. This seemed like a good idea. Yeah, so I just had to wait around for that, basically. Anyway, so now Bitcoin in gaming is possible. So Lightning Network came. I remember when it was first released, I tried it out, and it took me about an hour to actually buy a t-shirt because my payments wouldn't route. And so actually, to be honest, as a game developer, when it first came, it's like, okay, it's not the silver bullet I hoped for, It has potential, but it was quite hard to use in a game because I don't want to get into how Lightning works, but there's a lot of things you have to worry about, which I think I have a slide for. I have a slide about in a little bit. But yeah, anyway, so now I'm alone on the island, but with Lightning. So instead of Bitcoin, it's just me doing Lightning pretty much. And then Ethereum City had turned into Blockchain City. So we had all these other kind of chains cropping up, like Engine and EOS and stuff like this. So pretty much like the gaming community had kind of left Bitcoin, and and they weren't coming back because everybody was busy building on blockchain. So it was just me, which is kind of good because it means that I could start a company and have very little competition. But then we actually just started to see early Lightning gaming. So people might know this one is probably the first Lightning game, maybe, called Satoshi's Place, which was it was basically a public. Somebody described it as a public toilet wall, but you would basically pay to paint pixels, right? And you could draw whatever you wanted to, but you'd have to pay like a sat per pixel. And I think I remember at the Lightning conference, they actually had it behind them on a panel, and somebody was drawing a giant penis as they were doing it. you know, but it was kind of cool. It just kind of showed.
So I was showing people this in our first meetup because we were about the history of Lightning. And it's an interesting fact. It's actually still up and it still works.
Yeah.
Even like a month or two ago, I was using it.
I think it actually runs from London, doesn't it? Lightning. Well, when I spoke to Lightning Koala, I kept saying, like, why is it so slow? And he said, it's running off. It wasn't a Raspberry Pi, but it's running off a Raspberry Pi type thing in his cupboard. Literally, that was how it worked. It wasn't on a server, but it's quite. So I assume, you know, and like when it went down, I'd message him. He said, let me just open the cupboard. I'm like, you know, yeah. It got overheated or something. Yeah, but it was just showing how it's scalable now. We don't have to worry about, you know, spamming the blockchain. We don't have to worry about fees. We have to worry about channels. But we can solve that, right? Well, it basically has scalable ones. And then also Lightning Koala teamed up with Andre Nevis to make Koala Studios, and they brought out Lightning Chess, which was another kind of a Bitcoin game, which is quite cool. We have Satoshi's Games, who are a little bit controversial at the moment because they've moved to Solana. So, but we can talk about that a bit later. But they actually started to make games as well, and Donna Lab were another one. I think they made like a Minecraft server with Lightning. Then they also made like a first-person shooter style game, Bitcoin Bounty Hunt, and also Thunder Games. So Thunder Games, I think Jack comes to the meetups here now and then from Thunder Games. They're really cool. They actually accidentally got started at the Lightning conference. We actually kind of formed our company just before the Lightning conference, so we had a table, and Jack, who I'd spoken to, he kind of just turned up, and he noticed the table next to our booth was empty, so he just kind of set up shop. And so I'm working on this game, and actually, you know, and people found it quite popular. So after that, he kind of, okay, I'm going to make this a proper company. Yeah, so they're a good company, one to watch out for. But yeah, early, you know, gaming has started, you know, people start to realize it's okay to do it on Lightning, on Bitcoin. And it's actually quite important that the community also encouraged it. So before on Bitcoin, if you'd want to make a game, people were kind of, you know, they would kind of criticize you. You shouldn't be building on Bitcoin. It's, you know, it's not what Bitcoin is for. But Lightning, that culture of, yeah, build what you want, you know, it's okay, started to come back. So it was a lot more encouraged. But Lightning is hard, right? You know, so, you know, from technical point of view, it's still quite hard to use, right? I don't know, like, show of hands, how many people run a Lightning node here? Okay, probably the wrong meetup to ask at, but but anyway, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, if you want to just focus on making a game developer, you don't want to have to learn how to maintain a Lightning node. So it's not, you know, where a lot with building on chain, the kind of chain does everything for you a lot of the time. You don't, you know, it kind of, the chain in a way is your server, but with Lightning, you have to kind of run and manage it yourself. So there's concept of channels. You know, if you want to accept Lightning payments, you have to make sure you have these channels set up, which basically just means the payments route correctly. And you have to kind of, it's something that you kind of have to do manually if you want it to work well. There's kind of ways to do it automated, but
to be fair, it's a lot easier than it used to be, right? With all these nodes in boxes, everyone's got these like apps, it's all like built in.
That's true.
But I still totally agree.
Yeah,
it's more manual. It's more.
This is like when it first came out as well, right? It was like the wallets you download, you'd have to open the channel in the wallet, where now the wallets will open a channel for you, and you have to think about it, and there's various things. Also, another thing is actually regulation. This is more specific to game developers, so not the average user. But if you're a game developer, like a proper game developer, let's just say like Epic Games or something, and you want to use Bitcoin and Lightning, you know, you have to worry about regulation. Like, can you just send your players money? You know, what if somebody tries to use our game for money laundering? So it's kind of, it adds friction to game developers to use Bitcoin and Lightning. So these kind of things, why still we didn't really see too many games coming on Lightning, I think. Also, an important point, crypto people can't make games. Like, I've been in this space long enough, and I've made some terrible games, and I've just seen like block fighters, block wars, you know, crypto, karate, all these games come out, and yeah, it's like, we have the technology now, but it's kind of hard to use, and the people who like the technology don't know how to make games, you know. That's why the first games that came out were made like by Bitcoiners, you know, and it kind of showed. So we really needed game developers who know how to make games and don't know anything about Bitcoin to use Bitcoin. But because they don't know anything about Bitcoin, they wouldn't do it. So we kind of had like, the Bitcoin people couldn't make games and the game developers couldn't use Bitcoin. So that was kind of, you know, the friction that happened. But then along comes my company to solve it all. So this is a ZEBEDEE. This is co-founded by us three. That's Simon Cowell, he's our CEO. And he contacted me because he was working at Bitstamp at the time, and he just kind of saw that, Lightning Network is here. He said that working at an exchange, he saw how much liquidity of Bitcoin was out there, but there was nothing to really do with it, and he was kind of into gaming. So he said, well, who do I contact to make Bitcoin games? And again, I was the only person on the island. Not the only person, but, And he was actually an original player of Sarutobi in like 2014, 15. I actually have a support email from him where he's like asking me, hey, can we do this or something? So it's kind of, it's weird how, kind of stuff comes around. Andre Neves, he was from Chaincode Residency. So Chaincode was this company who they basically, I don't know what, they funded Bitcoin development, and he also did like a residency where if you were selected, you would just go to New York for like a month and just learn from the experts how to make Bitcoin. And he also comes from like a kind of big tech background. And he also made Koala Studios, who made the Lightning Chess. So, and it was me who made games. So we're kind of like the three pillars of like a chair or something. Simon knows business. He comes from the business world. Andre knows kind of tech. He's built stuff for like big companies like Facebook, etc. And I know kind of games in a way. So we kind of came together. And before, I think Andre tried to get funding for Koala Studios, but he wasn't really the business guy. I tried to get funding for my games, but I wasn't really a business guy either. And Simon didn't really know anything about gaming in a way. So we all kind of come together to make ZEBEDEE. And I'm going to go into a little bit what ZEBEDEE is. Let's see what slide. Yep. So ZEBEDEE, we basically, our goal is we want to make it easier for game devs to add Bitcoin into their games. So as I mentioned before, there's technical challenges, there's regulatory issues. So we are not a gaming studio. We do have games we have made, but we are making the tools to get like the big players like Epic Games or something like that to use Bitcoin. So our kind of product suite is we have like an open REST API, which kind of works on all platforms. I'm not going to go too much into the tech details here, but we have a developer dashboard. We have a game server, but we basically have all the tools for a game studio to be able to kind of download an API key and add Bitcoin into their games. And they don't have to worry about channels. They don't have to worry about the wallet, because we have a wallet that players can use. They don't have to worry if they're breaking any laws or regulations, because we cover all that. So we make it really easy for gamers to add Bitcoin into their games. Yeah, so this is our wallet as well, which is something we made because we noticed there's a spectrum of Lightning wallets. On one end, you have ones which are a bit harder to use, but they're non-custodial. You can use them yourself. But our wallet is really targeted not at Bitcoiners; it's targeted at gamers. So we want to kind of get gamers into Bitcoin with the least friction possible. So it's a consumer wallet. It has like a browser extension, so you can use it. You can link it with your Discord. So, we have people who play games in our Discord. They can just write, send Chris 10 sats and it's sent and it all reflects in the wallet. We have this gamer tag concept. So one of the issues with Lightning at the moment is it's kind of much based around QR codes, which QR codes are kind of cool, but in gaming, I'll show it in a bit, you kind of don't want to have to be scanning QR codes. Say you're playing a game and you're collecting a coin. You just want that coin to the Bitcoin to be sent to you. So we have this concept called a gamer tag, where if you download our wallet, it gives you a unique username in a way, and then you can just type, send 10 sats to Dave or whatever, and it's just sent to them. And this kind of is a thing that makes sense to gamers. We have some integrations as well. So I'm going to show a 3-minute video, which kind of shows some of the stuff we do. And then after that, I've got a few more slides, and I'm going to kind of get some people to actually play one of our sample games that we made. And you can actually get some Bitcoin from it. Okay. Oh, I can use this, can't I? I saw, oh, well, we got an active god, so wow, we've got more than 20 power-ups, so that'll kind of mess everybody up. It literally makes it chaotic. We have like tornadoes and things, and the drivers hate it, but it only lasts for about 20 seconds. And we have lightning bolts. So what I'm trying to do here is just trying to kind of show how the audience can interact with the game through Bitcoin. Nope. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So some people might have noticed we actually have a Bitcoin integration into CS:GO, which is like a massively huge game. I think at peak they have like 20 million monthly online players, and we added Bitcoin to that just because, as I mentioned before, we're not a gaming company, so we can build kind of fun games, but we can't build like really AAA games. So we decided it makes sense just to put Bitcoin into a game people already play, but now they'll want to play it more for Bitcoin. And then we can actually go to AAA game studios, which we're doing now, and say, look, we had CSGO, we put Bitcoin in it, and the players are now playing more, so you should put Bitcoin into your AAA games, So that's how we get this conversation started. But this is actually some nice stories of people tweeting out stuff they've bought playing ZEBEDEE games, mainly CSGO, for Bitcoin. So yeah, these are mostly from, I think, Brazil or like South America. Yeah, but this guy he's just bought food so he can eat. He's turned his CSGO playing into food. This person saying this person has paid their monthly bills and bought sneakers. So yeah, it's really nice to see that there's kind of like a circular economy happening here. I should point out that the Bitcoin that these people have made on our CSGO, we mainly have sponsored servers. So we have people like Bitstamp who are kind of funding it, but you can actually kind of pay to play. So on the ones that are pay to play, for every photo of somebody buying something, there's somebody frustrated that they've probably lost Bitcoin, But it's kind of nice, I think, you kind of get these young kids in South America taking money from like richer people who aren't as good in America or something. So it kind of like maybe balances out a little bit. But yeah, but we actually have servers that are sponsored, so you can play without having to lose anything. Yeah, so we have like a few mobile games that you can also try. This is obviously my game. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, my game that broke during the scaling debate, I brought it back with Lightning. So Sarutobi, you can play now and get Bitcoin. We also have, these are two from another developer called Vika. They're kind of like hyper-casual mobile games. So the way these games are funded is the game will show ads, like games do, but some of the ad revenue the developers are giving back to the players in the form of Bitcoin. Sarutobi probably has the most Bitcoin that we give out. But we also get, this is a great one we added, who wants to be millionaire, which kind of makes sense. So people were playing this game and they were kind of like, you know, not getting money. It's a game where you get money. So now you can play this and you can get like sats, you know. So you can get 1 million sats, I guess, in a way, you know. Well, you have to play a lot to get that much, you know. But yeah, so these are some mobile games. But if you're more of a professional gamer, you want to try Counter-Strike, CSGO. Yeah, and we have a lot of other games coming onto the platform this year, which, you know, I can't mention just yet, but some exciting additions are going to be added. Yeah, and notice the last slide is kind of like an open kind of thing. So obviously I kind of went through how Bitcoin started with Bitcoin gaming started with Bitcoin payments and how we were playing around with NFTs in the early days and how Lightning has come and we can have Bitcoin payments on games, but we can't really have NFTs on Bitcoin yet. Really, Lightning does payments well. And that's why Lightning is scalable because it's like a tool, it's focusing on one job. You know, that's why it can do this one job well, where more general blockchains like Ethereum who want to do smart contracts, because they're trying to do so many things, it's an order of magnitude more difficult to scale. So we're not quite there yet with doing some of this other stuff on Bitcoin, but there are a few ways it's kind of been solved or done at the moment. So we have side chains, which could be a thing on Bitcoin maybe. I know the next event you'll have Ruben, who's going to talk about space chains. So if they ever come, that could be a thing, you know, that we are keeping an eye on. RGB is the kind of thing that lets you do tokens on Lightning, but not really. I don't know. I think you had a guy, Igor, was it, talk about RGB, but I still think that has some limitations because I think, you know, to transfer an asset would still take an on-chain transaction, but yeah, it's a better approach. Databases are a great way to do, you know, which is it's an important point on dynos and databases. So does anybody know what dyno means? It's kind of a new term. Yes. Yeah. So again, being a little bit of you know, I'd say a little bit skeptical, I suppose. We actually I said that a lot of people were building on Ethereum, and then as those fees became high, they've moved to other chains. So in my opinion, I don't think it's wrong, but people are solving the scalability issue of game items on a blockchain by making blockchains which aren't really blockchains. They're kind of making, you know, things that are really databases, but they call them a blockchain. So people think they're using a blockchain, but then, you know, these blockchains go offline, which doesn't really happen. You know, the Lightning Network can't really go offline per se, right? You know, because it's decentralized. So people are kind of solving it. It's a little bit frustrating at the moment because, again, to be cynical, they are they're not completely centralized. They seem to be they're decentralized enough to avoid regulation, but not decentralized enough that you could actually have like true ownership of your item. But I don't actually think NFTs or game items necessarily have to be super decentralized. This is why I put databases, right? If you're playing a game and the game is centralized anyway and the game gives you an asset that you can kind of trade, I think most gamers in a way, when they're like NFTs, are not particularly bothered about being able to store their NFT on a hardware wallet and validate they have the NFT by their own node. They just like the idea they can have something and they can trade it on a marketplace. So what we're kind of starting to see in this space is a lot of these other chains which are kind of more centralized, giving people the low fees, the marketplace. They don't give them the decentralization, but no one's really complaining about that. So that's probably where it's going. So yeah, I'm, you know, NFTs on Bitcoin, we could have decentralized NFTs, you know, in the future, but I think for most gamers aren't too fussed about that. And at ZEBEDEE, we have something interesting we're working on, but we kind of believe that the good thing about Bitcoin is with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin itself is decentralized, if you get Bitcoin in a game, even if it's through a decentralized way, you have a decentralized asset that you can store on your wallet. But yeah, so that's kind of some like end thought, you know, this is kind of like the horizon where Bitcoin gaming is now and the, you know, future questions and issues that might arise. But yeah, probably the next talk, you know, you can ask Ruben about NFTs on space chains. He might give you some interesting ideas. Yeah, and that's all, folks. Any questions for me? Yeah.
Those little games, yeah, those ones.
Yeah.
Are they? Where do you get those? They're not in the ZEBEDEE app?
No, you just have to download it on like Play Store or Yeah, or iOS. Yeah, I think most of them are on both, but definitely all on the Play Store. Yeah. Yes, you can.
You just punch in your ZEBEDEE.
Yeah, so at the moment, all these games at the moment, I think they work through the gamer tags. This is something, so Sarutobi actually, if you played it, you could actually withdraw the Bitcoin to any Lightning wallet. But at the moment, I limited it so it only pays out to the ZEBEDEE gamer tag. So you get sats sent to your ZEBEDEE wallet. You can then send those sats to another Lightning wallet if you want, but yeah, you'll need the ZEBEDEE wallet to play. And the reason I did that is for two reasons. One is it's quite interesting. Play-to-earn blockchain games are quite popular at the moment. And people might be aware that there are these, captures aren't safe anymore, right? If you want to put a capture on your website, there are actually APIs that you can download, which it sends your capture to like a farm in Africa, and humans solve it. And then they send back the answer, and you basically pay like a penny for each time that's kind of done. And the same things are cropping up for kind of Bitcoin and play-to-earn games. So what was happening in these games is that we had, I saw these farms would crop up in like Indonesia and stuff, and they were kind of like farming the game and getting all the sats. So we had to make some changes to kind of stop people doing that. And one of the small changes was that they'd had to have a ZEBEDEE wallet, but I'm going to add support for Lightning in general because we've kind of solved this issue about.
Why can't they farm ZEBEDEE wallets? I mean, if
They can, but it's an extra level of friction. And also, Lightning still has fees. If I want to send one sat to a player, then if I send it and they have a wallet that goes through a weird route, I might have to pay 10 sats to send that one sat. But with a gamer tag, it's a lot lower. But yeah, you're right. So once I added that, they started to get round the ZEBEDEE wallet, started to farm. So now
it's good for your numbers, it's good for your stats of your company, right?
Yeah, but
Not 5 million new users.
this is something we actually did an experiment. So actually, ZEBEDEE, we make games not for our business model. We actually make games to kind of explore and see what are the issues so we can advise other people. So we've noticed this issue with, if you put Bitcoin in a game, are people going to try and farm it and hack it, which they will. So through the Sarutobi, we come up with a solution where it's a few ways to do it, but kind of one way to stop it is that when they first play the game, you can earn so little that it's not economical to farm it. But as you actually progress as a player and the game knows you're a real person because you've actually done stuff that real people do, or a real person will put time and effort in, then you start to earn more and more Bitcoin, and that's what we're doing with Sarutobi, and that kind of stopped it because now if a farm starts up, they can't get to that level. It's not economical for them to get like one sat or something, because they still have to pay humans. So that's something we're doing with that game. I actually find it quite interesting, but it's kind of a new. It's some of the issues when you put Bitcoin into games is it makes people play a lot more. So we see the users, we see companies who have added us. They see like a 2x in retention, which is massive in the games industry, and the cost per install, the CPI is like 40 cents compared to like $4 or something. So that's really, really, really good. But obviously the flip side is that you get people trying to make bots to play your game. So that's why we kind of, but yeah, it's a solvable problem. It's just, just need some creative thinking. Yeah, sorry, any more questions?
Actually, on CSGO,
Yes?
did you do like a plugin or is it a CSGO thing? How does it work?
Yeah, it's actually quite an interesting story. I actually wanted to, originally I was going to do it for Quake. And I went on a Quake modding forum, and I wanted to mod Quake because Quake was kind of open source. Yeah. And the administrator said, you're not trying to mod it to add cryptocurrency to it. If you are, I'll ban you. Oh. So in a way, I thought, well, no. But then I thought, well, I don't really have to mod it. What you can actually do with these games is, like CSGO and Quake, they let you run your own server. So when somebody's playing, you can actually see all the traffic that's going on your server. So if somebody shot somebody. They just download the legit game from Steam, they join on your server, and you can see that Alice shot Dave, and then you can just send Alice a sat. So the great thing is you don't even have to mod it. We have added some mods just to make it a bit more fun, like putting actual coins in the game. Yeah, but it's actually really quite interesting, and I recommend if anybody's watching this and they want to try and mod another game, there are a bunch of games which let you run like a dedicated server. These games with our API, it's really easy to put Bitcoin into them. Yeah, so nice. Okay, so I know, feel free to ask me questions afterwards, but I actually did come with some games we can actually try. At ZEBEDEE, we developed a Mario Kart style game, and you basically play it like Mario Kart, and at the end you get sats. So I'll probably end the presentation now, and then I'll get that set up, and then we can...
Can I just ask one more?
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't know you had a browser extension. What functionality is in that? Because I've only used the mobile wallet.
Yeah, it's all the same. So the idea is like the wallet is everywhere you go, right? So if you download our wallet, you have a ZEBEDEE account. So that ZEBEDEE account is in browser, it's in Discord, it's in Telegram as well, I think.
Yeah, I've used it in Discord, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea is ZEBEDEE everywhere, because that's how gamers play, right? And gamers.
Does it somehow give the ability, like if you're on some kind of web page, I'm not quite sure what kind, to make a payment on the... I'm trying to think what the browser...
Yeah, well, obviously it'll support, for example, with some Lightning games, if you press a link and it calls an LN URL, the extension would pick that up and pay it, for example.
Right, so the game is in the browser, right?
Yeah,
Right.
That could be a way. It doesn't even have to be a game per se. Like, say you played a ZEBEDEE, say you played Sarutobi and you earned a lot of sats and they were sent to your wallet. Then you go onto the browser, you're shopping on some Bitcoin website which accepts Bitcoin payments to buy gift cards, and then you can actually just pay from your extension, because it's the same account, stuff like that, right? Yeah.
And what would you say, because I suspect a lot of people either haven't used ZEBEDEE before, maybe. What would you say is like the usefulness of it? Is it exclusively if you're a hardcore gamer you're going to find it useful, or are there other kinds of users you think might find it useful?
So we're a gaming company, and we started with gamers. So obviously there are Lightning companies who are more general payment companies, but as ZEBEDEE, ideally, we'd great to do payments everywhere, but we wanted to be focused, right? We thought it makes more sense to focus on a demographic and gamers and get that working first. But yeah, we will probably slowly also expand, to other types of applications. But yeah, I suppose the wallet is a Lightning wallet, which kind of works for other things, right? So not just gaming, but eventually we're probably going to bridge to, I think gaming itself is kind of blurring. So things are becoming gamified, right? So we have one studio that is trying to make like a Duolingo type thing. It's not really a game, but it's like an application where you can learn a language and you get like Bitcoin rewards. So in a way, we probably would branch out to more gamified things. And then who knows in the future, it's, sky's the limit, I guess. But
And since you might have been about to say anything, Alex, but since we already discussed this in earlier meetups, the sort of profile of your wallet from a Lightning technical perspective is, to what extent is it custodial or not?
Yep.
Does it support LN URL? LN URL stuff, the address and all that stuff. Those kind of things.
Yeah. So this, again, we are a gaming company first, really, at the moment. So we wanted to make a wallet which is just easy for gamers who don't know about Bitcoin. So it's a custodial gaming wallet. To sign up, you don't need to do any like KYC to start to use it and get some sats. If you start to get like a lot of sats and stuff, and you want to, then you'd have to KYC. But
you start with an email address, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's all the Discord. However, the games that use the ZEBEDEE platform, you don't have to use the ZEBEDEE wallet to necessarily get the stats. So a gaming company could use our SDK, and they support LN URL. So if the gaming company wants you to use any Lightning wallet you want, that would also be possible. But our wallet also supports like LN URL. So if you kind of get sats on our wallet and you don't like that we're custodial, you could send it off to your own wallet, and keep it on your Lightning node, etc.
You can use LN address with it, right?
Lightning address?
The Lightning address.
Yes. So Lightning address was actually Andre Nevis, our CTO, was something that he kind of came up with. Yeah. So we obviously, we're big promoters of Lightning address. So like we're a custodial, but we're an open wallet, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I was going to say that for use case, I actually used the wallet for my website. I wanted to have a donation there, and I didn't want to like mess with everything, so I just have the LN address and the QR code. So it was great for that. It was like the easiest solution to set up.
Yeah, I think if you download our wallet, you get like a profile page which gives you a QR code which lets you accept tips. So yeah. So again, like that's another use case outside of gaming. People can use our wallet for tipping, right? And the Lightning address, I think, works with Twitter, or Twitter have some support for that. So yeah, I think the wallet is a little bit. So our main core function is we do the APIs and SDK for game developers, but we made a wallet because we want a wallet. We don't want to scare people off. We don't want to scare gamers off with some of the early wallets that when we first started weren't quite there. But the wallet itself is taking off into kind of a thing of its own, which is quite nice to see. Yeah. Okay, good.
Any other questions? No? All right. Then we play games, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm just going to get set up. It'll take a second, but yeah. Thank you for having me, and it's been great. Mario Kart game, because most people know how to play it. We can actually change the Mario coins to Bitcoin. It's kind of a great way to explain it. And we actually, in Miami last year, we actually had a competition for this game where the race, the winner got half a Bitcoin in prize. Wow. So we actually, and I think every month we were doing competitions where we gave away 10 million sats or something from this game. Knowing today it'll probably bug out and everything because it's being filmed. But yeah, I'll just explain how it will work, and I'm going to host the game, then I'll get you guys to join it. Okay, so I'm just going to host the game. I'll change this. So this is, I'm Chris. So this is my username, and here I'm entering my gamer tag. So this game, you don't have to enter your gamer tag. If you don't enter your gamer tag, I'll show a QR code at the end where you scan to get your sats. If you enter your gamer tag, you actually get a bit more sats, and it kind of just it sends it to you. So my gamer tag is Mandelduck, if anybody wants to send me sats. There is weird, on our wallet there's this guy who keeps sending people sats for free. He just keeps sending, now and then we just get like this PTDS or something his name, sent me 2 sats, I don't know why, nobody knows why, but not complaining. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting 1,000 sats into the game, and then that will be distributed to the players based on how many coins they collect and on their positions. So I'm just going to, you're going to pay this. So I'm sending Bitcoin into the game now. Oh, it doesn't like the light.
You could want one of us to pay for the space back.
I know, but we can do another one. So. Okay, and these are some of the cards we have. So we have the Bitcoin card, we have the Bitcoin roller coaster guy. We actually did a thing where people might know the Magical Crypto Friends podcast. I think it's finished now, but we actually got those guys playing. Yeah, so I'm just going to choose the and increase my speed a bit.
You get to increase the speed.
Yes, everybody can. And I'm going to do the. I'll do this one because it's a little bit shorter. So guys, now
you're on now, guys.
Yeah. So.
I haven't got a name tag.
Yeah. So the gamer tag is the thing before the address. So before the @.
Just that, ZEBEDEE.
It'll be Roger 9000.
Right.
Just that.
Oh, okay.
It's name test, isn't it?
Hey?
It's name test.
Yeah, that'll be the one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Where?
Yeah, I'm recording right now. So
Where have I met him before? Ah. Yeah, I recognize you.
Just type a nickname in there as well. Okay, yeah. Europe, that's right. Yeah.
okay, so Roger, both of the guys are ready with their screens. You're like behind.
Sorry.
What's happening? There you go.
What's that? You can cut that out.
Yeah, and just choose the cart you want.
Okay.
Just click here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is the trackpad's a bit weird, but click right on the left.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah. Choose any card.
All right, so you have your car. You have your car.
Yeah.
What's happening on your screen there? What does look different?
I'm waiting for this.
Oh, you're waiting for your
He's ready.
Well, he's actually the only one who's ready, pretty much.
Okay, so I'll just show you the controls. So the controls are A is to accelerate. Yeah, the joystick is to turn, basically. You want to try and get the coins. The left trigger is to use a power-up. and the right trigger is to throw a coin. So we do this thing, we have Bitcoin like on the track, and you can collect the coins. And the more coins you collect, the more Bitcoin you get at the end. But you can also throw the coins at other players to kind of hit them and like overtake them. But then you have to kind of spend your Bitcoin. So like, do you hoard the coins and get more at the end, or do you try and use the coins to overtake and then you get like a bonus stats at the end? So yeah. But anyway, A is to go forward, turn, left trigger use power up, right trigger throw a coin. Yeah. But if you're confused, just go forward and try and get many coins. Watch out for the sand on this track.
This is going to be insane.
This is me playing. I'm going to lose on purpose.
What? Where are they going?
Oh,
yeah. Where after that?
What's the question mark?
This is
Play on the screen is lagging, so
This is insane.
Excuses.
Whoa.
You're supposed to collect the coins, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Collect the coins.
yeah, rich.
Who's in first place?
Not me. Oh
I
man.
guess so.
Coins are coming too fast.
How do you go faster again?
It's the left thing.
What's the? How do you? I can't see what's the screen.
What is the problem?
How do you go faster?
You're having problem accelerating. You're the last one, aren't you? Andy? you're like an old gray, right?
I have no idea. How
You're
to go
going fast now. There you go. You did something good. Whatever
I
you
don't
did.
know what I did there.
I don't know.
You just hold it. I'm just trying to get coins, man.
Alright, okay.
Yeah, but
I don't think I'm gonna
not,
put this in the video, by the way.
I'm
It's
not
like,
doing very well.
this whole section, but anyway.
Coins are hard to get, aren't they? Oh yeah.
Okay,
They've got like advertising boards for different companies on the site. It's kind of cool.
Okay, I'm just gonna get coins.
What's happening?
What? No!
Why?
Great.
Just going back to get some more coins.
You're doing the most interesting commentary so far. Self-commentary, anyway.
I got no stats rankings first. I just got
Okay, so you won.
sent to my gamer tag the wallet, so I'm not gonna do anything.
Show it for the camera. Show the people how much money and bucks everything else here.
Because what will happen when everybody finishes, it will send me some more coins.
Right.
There's some coins that won't be collected on the track, and if there are
Right.
any coins, it sends it to people with the gamer tag.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So we just have to wait for the people here to finish, pretty much, so you can get your money. That's what's happening.
We've only got this room till 8 o'clock.
So yeah.
well, this game is actually available on itch at the moment, so you can actually download it. It's PC only at the moment. You can download it and basically play with friends. You know, everybody can pay some stats to enter, and you can compete with friends. Mac version is coming out soon, and we're actually trying to push it to the Epic Game Stores. Because Steam at the moment they don't really allow any blockchain games temporarily. They're going to change their minds, from what I've heard, but they just kind of did a blanket ban to stop a lot of scams. So we're going to push to the Epic Game Stores because they seem a lot more friendly. And but ideally, you know, we want Nintendo to add Bitcoin to Mario Kart rather than us having to make a poor man's Mario Kart clone. But it just kind of shows the concept, show how the wallet works. And I think everyone finished the thing. Yeah, cool. I was going to quickly say, so I actually got a second transaction after everybody finished saying of 14 sats, and this is a coin return. So some coins weren't collected, and any coins that weren't collected, I want to send back to the players. But without the gamer tag, I would have to make another QR code for somebody to kind of scan, and maybe they've quit the game. But with the gamer tag, the server can just after the game is finished, just send it with you not worrying about it. So I know there are kind of streaming sats protocols coming to Lightning, this keysend and stuff, so we might be able to do that in a more open way. But at the moment, that's one of the benefits the gamer tag gives you, is we can kind of stream payments And also, I kind of think, for games, it's okay if we centralize the sending of 14 sats. It kind of makes sense.